Public Meetings Law, I wish to state that on October the 11th, 2019, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel, Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the clerk's office. Tonight's meeting is being video recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on UTTV Channel 97 and on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement made a part of the minutes of this meeting, and I would ask all to rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Cobb?
Here.
Mr. Fortson?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Here.
Mayor Palumbo?
Here.
All members are present.
All right, before we get into the report of the governing body members, we have a couple presentations. And I believe we have Mr. Steibinger here. Thank you from the audience. And we're here to honor his heroic efforts. So, Edward, if you would come up here, I can read the resolution for you, and then we can present it to you. You, Howard. So this resolution reads, whereas the members of the Upper Township Committee are honored to recognize the heroic acts of exemplary citizens who take prompt and appropriate action in emergency situations. On June 29, 2019, at approximately 11:30 a.m., why don't you turn around so that they can take a picture of you, Edward Simager was visiting the Upper Township Senior Center when he observed that his friend and fellow patron, Howard Woolley, was in respiratory distress. Whereas after quickly assessing that Mr. Woolley was choking on a piece of food, Edward promptly executed the Heimlich maneuver on Mr. Woolley, dislodging the obstruction and saving his life. Where it is fitting and proper for the Township of Upper to honor Edward for his quick response to crisis, coolness under pressure, and proficiency in the Heimlich maneuver, it is the hope of this committee that this incident be used to highlight and promote the importance for all citizens to learn this life-saving procedure. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Upper that this committee expresses its sincere gratitude to Edward for his courage, heroism, and genuine compassion for the welfare of others. So, congratulations. And I would like to present this to you. And tell you that I had a personal experience with this once with my youngest son, who was choking on a piece of steak, believe it or not, and he could not get his breath. And I used the Heimlich maneuver. So I know it's a very difficult to do it, and it's also very rewarding that you take care of an individual. So it's something I think everyone should have some proficiency in. So congratulations. Thank you.
I'm just glad he was there that day.
You know what? We're really happy he was there too, because you're standing next to us. Keep up the good work. Well done. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Larry, for telling us about this incident. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Member.
So we also have a presentation tonight from Joe McKetta from the National Weather Service Storm Ready Community Recognition. So if you would, please.
Thank you, gentlemen. I am Joe McKenna with the National Weather Service in New Jersey, in the office that forecasts the weather around here. And I've been working with Scott Morgan over the last couple of years on developing storm ready program here in Upper Township. And because of our staffing issues and stuff like that, it was a delayed process, but we finally got there. So I really appreciate it. Storm Ready is a program in the National Weather Service where we recognize communities and counties for doing all the right things to make sure that they're prepared for bad weather. And it doesn't mean that you're storm-proof, but it means that you're as ready as you can be when the next storm hits, like tomorrow. And Scott has paperwork, and I go through all this stuff. Upper Township actually does all this stuff. There's 6 different categories, whether you have communication, whether you can relay the warnings. When you relay the warnings, you got to make sure that people who need to have the warnings get them. And not only that, but when you get the warning, you know what to do with it, which is very, very important. If you get the warning and you don't know what to do with it, it doesn't do anybody any good. So, Cape May County, Upper Township included. You guys know that weather hits you guys all the time. We had flooding last weekend. We're going to have heavy rain, strong winds.
No storm surge, right?
What?
We had enough erosion last week. We have no storm surge. At least what I've seen so far being sent from you.
Right.
We don't need any more storm surge.
Right. Well, you won't get, I don't think you get storm surge tomorrow. You're going to get heavy rain and strong winds. We think maybe anywhere between 40 and 50 miles per hour. So just be prepared for it. So anyhow, that's what, and we have a storm ready program to recognize communities like you guys for all the efforts you make. So Upper Township has been declared storm ready for a 3-year period. And we thank Scott Morgan for all the work that he did to make sure that happened.
Thank you, John.
And here's the plaque. You get one road sign from the Weather Service. We're a great organization, but we're frugal, so we only do one sign. You can order more, they're $40 a piece if you want one. And then we also give you a certificate here recognizing the fact that you are storm ready. And it's a great honor because there's really only 19 communities in the state of New Jersey that are storm ready. So
Now 20.
now 20. That's correct. Thank you for correcting that. So if I could just give the sign here, and then I'll hold it, and then you sign it. I think everyone's taking it.
Okay.
That way we can get the recognition. Okay,
There we go. Come on.
Mike, come on up.
I do want to thank Scott and Mike. I know that they put a lot of time in our Office of Emergency Management. A long time ago, when I was a relatively new mayor in 2005, I had an opportunity to serve in the Hurricane Katrina relief effort as a pharmacist. I also saw what was going on down there and how, unfortunately, New Orleans wasn't ready to or prepared to handle the scope of and the magnitude of what Katrina brought to New Orleans. And I know the first thing I did when I came back was to make sure that we bought satellite phones because there was no communication for almost a week and a half that I was down there. And so we have, with the help of the committee, we have gradually put ourselves in a very good position when it comes to being ready for storms and being ready for disasters, weather-related, that, we may have not been in the earlier years. So, and I know it really, to me, is a compliment to Scott for all the work that he's done, because he's really brought us not only into the 21st century, but as it would say beyond. And we're really happy that he's here and has us in that position to be where we are today. So thank you both, and thank you for the recognition, and keep up the good work. Just keep sending those storms east of us so it doesn't affect anybody in New Jersey.
We'll do our best, but I can't guarantee it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's go back to the governing body things before we have the resolution. So Scott, do you have anything for us this evening?
Just one thing tonight, Mayor and Committee. I think it was like a week and a half ago now that we received officially our EMAA fiscal year funding for 2018. EMAA is Emergency Management Assistance in the amount of $10,000, so that was electronically deposited. As you remember, through subsequent meetings, I had reported on our application, many steps that we have to go through, myself and Barb, to receive this money, and we officially did that, and we We have also moved on to our 2019, so we hope, I don't necessarily know that we'll receive it before the end of the year, possible, because they're playing catch-up with the state, but possibly through the first quarter, we should receive another $10,000.
Great.
And that is all.
Maybe you can order a few more signs.
There we go. Yes. You know, I might add too that, and I want to give kudos to Paul for the CRS program. This achievement here actually rolls over and segues into the CRS program, which of course, community rating system, also anybody that has national flood insurance, it serves to give us the points that we need to reduce the rates of national flood insurance. So it all ties together. It's not just one initiative, it's a group thing. So.
Great. Thank you. What?
Minutes.
Okay, we'll come back to that. I didn't forget about it. Barbara?
I just have a couple of things. I'd like to thank the Upper Township Public Works and EMS and our OEM department, and especially my staff, Janet McBride, who is our wellness coordinator, for her coordination of the Upper Township Health Fair. It was a very successful event. The county gave out over 120 flu shots. We had many vendors, and it was a very nice thing for the community and keep everybody abreast of all the different health and wellness things that we have to offer here in the township. The next thing I have is we have scheduled trick-or-treating here in Upper Township. It will be held on October 31st from 5 to 8 p.m. And we just encourage everyone to wear bright, visible colors, walk with a friend, and, you know, just be safe out there on
Flashlights.
flashlights,
Reflectors.
and then general election is November 5th. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. If anyone has questions about their polling places or just general questions, feel free to call the clerk's office and we can help you with that. And that's all I have, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Great. Daniel?
Nothing at this time, but we do have a number of items to close session.
Okay. Paul?
Good evening. Just a couple items. First, I received notice from the Kimmie County that the construction on Hope Corson Road is finally starting to come to fruition. They should be next week doing some construction layout and installing the construction signs, and then the following week of the 27th, they'll start construction activities, starting with drainage work. Reminder, the road will be closed to through traffic, so they will allow school buses and emergency vehicles through. But that should be about a month and a half, 2 month long project.
Any word on Corson Tavern Road?
After I received the notification about that, I attempted to contact the county engineer several times, and knowing that if I'm going to report on one county road, I was looking to get an update on all the other county road projects, but he unfortunately didn't give me any new update. The last update that I had was that they were waiting to get the final federal concurrence of the project. They have to review, because there's federal highway dollars involved in the project, they had to get their review by the federal government. They were hoping to have that done by last month, and then once that was done, then they could start to put it out to bid. So it should be on a cycle for construction for spring of 2020. But I don't have any update to see if that's been updated at all.
Okay.
And then the other thing I just wanted to report, this Thursday at the Upper Township Planning Board meeting, we will be discussing the Township's Municipal Public Access Plan. We've kind of developed a draft over the last several years, but with the courts and several municipalities battling over the legality or how they should be done, we're in a position where we have to do a public access plan in order to maintain our beach and dune maintenance general permit, which is up for renewal next year. So part of we're trying to incorporate it as part of a master plan element, and we're going to incorporate it as part of this more recent re-examination. So we're looking for updates or suggestions for people that might have, what other types of public access to the waterways are we missing, or should we continue to encourage? So we will be reviewing that plan this Thursday at the planning board meeting.
Okay,
And that's all I had, thank you.
all right, Barbara.
Just a couple things this evening. Earlier this evening, Paul and I met with the Upper Township Business Association in their effort to buy local. We went over with them our procurement process, trying to educate the local businesses, and just gave them some information, encouraged them to reach out to myself if they have local businesses that would like to do business with us. The other thing I have is a request. This year we met our GIF safety goals, and we were awarded $2,100. Now there's a request, Terry, who handles our GIF matters, is requesting that we purchase gift cards to give out to the employees as thank you for being safe. There will be $75 $25 cards and $26 $10 cards to Wawa. If you approve that, we'll go ahead and get those moving. I just need that in a motion.
I'd like to put that in the form of a motion.
Second, the only thing what's the difference between somebody that gets 25 and one gets 10?
Full-time and part-time.
Okay, that's fair. Might say for first and second. Any
Mr.
other
Barr?
discussion? Let's go roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Pogus?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Kokomo?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, Committeeman Coggins,
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Committeeman Young.
Just a few things. First, I'd like to say thank you to Barb and her staff and the ones that volunteered to work the Pumpkin Fest the other day, as well as Craig and the many Public Works guys that worked it. A lot of hours we put in, and everybody did a great job, and I received a lot of compliments, not only on the condition of the facility, but also the people that worked it. Also, I'd like to thank the prosecutor's office, the county OEM, our EMS, our OEM, the CERT program. Cape Regional has become a corporate sponsor for us. They've been a big help. And also this year, Upper Township Business Association. Blanche, if you could pass that. It was greatly appreciated that you helped us put together the kids zone. And I hope you had a nice day out there. You know, we did. We had beautiful weather. Unfortunately, our turnout was quite a bit smaller this year due to some scheduling conflicts. So we'll work on that. Craig, again, the front of Township Hall, phenomenal. You know, the guys did a great job, not only with the flowers, but the decorations, and something we want to continue for every holiday from this point on. So looking forward to working with you on that. I just want to commend again, and it seems like I'm really touting on the Public Works guys, but rec guys this week. We had Cancer Awareness Week at Codwell for the football game, and I received a lot of thank yous and accolades from the opposing teams as well as our own program on the lining that we did with the multiple colors of pink, black, and yellow and white, and putting the ribbons out and doing different things. It's not a lot, but those little things really make a difference to our programs and the class that we show when other people come into this township. So if you could pass that along as a thank you from me, and hopefully we'll keep that up also. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Barr.
All right, I'll just add another kudo to you, Craig, for the quick response.
You're gonna have a hard time walking out of
for the
here
cleanup. So not like you don't have any experience in that. So coming from Stone Harbor, but your staff did a good job responding to the storm. And that's all I have to report.
Committeeman Corson.
I have a couple things, Mr. Mayor. First thing, October 22nd, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Amanda's Field is going to be our trunk or treat sponsored by the Upper Township Rescue Squad. So everybody come out and have a good time. There's candy for everyone, I would imagine. And also we have our free rabies clinic Saturday, October 19th at Shore Veterinarian Animal Hospital from 1 to 3, so. And the other thing I think my colleague forgot to mention, Craig, was 49 and 50. You guys cleaned that up and it looks spectacular. That really turned out nice too, thank you.
That's one I forgot to thank you for. You know, Kurt, the one thing we're going to have to look at, going down from this point on, if the state and the county's not going to do it, we're going to have to.
Well, I guess the minutes probably reflect when they wanted to put that bridge there, I objected to it because I knew it was going to turn into an eyesore.
No, I mean, if we're going to maintain it, once we get it started, it'll be an easy maintenance. But throughout the township, we're talking about making our entryways that are, you know, more appealing. And if they're not going to do it, I think we're going to have to.
Yeah.
And just doing it on a regular basis. So again, Craig, job well done on that.
I didn't mean to get out of line with that, but I sit there every day when I get home from work and I sit there and look at that. I went to Scott and said, what can I do?
You did
Go
right.
ahead.
It looks fabulous.
Yep.
My suggestion would be put concrete under it and eliminate the bed so we can mow right up to it.
We're going to scratch his suggestion for the minutes.
Well, I could have suggested scrapping it.
I have nothing to add to this discussion. Sorry, Craig, I mean, everybody gave their kudos already. So let's go back to the minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the September 23rd regular and closed session minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any corrections, deletions, omissions that anyone's aware of? Hearing none. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
There's not too many resolutions, so let's go through them and then we'll go to the ordinance because I'm sure that's what the majority of the people are here for, so.
Item number 3, in support of the Cape May County Sheriff's commitment to upholding public safety in Cape May County.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 4, authorizing an extension of the shared services agreement with the County of Cape May for the use of county resources during special township-sponsored events.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 5, appointing Louis A. Bonato as an appraiser for the Township of Upper.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 6, granting the appeal of the street opening moratorium for Block 492, Lot 26.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 7, amending Resolution Number 12, 2019, appointing various officers and employees to annual and specified terms.
Hobie, you're going to have a
Conflict
abstain
on
from
that.
this?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
abstain.
Thank you.
Move the resolution?
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
And Mr. Young?
Abstain.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with 4 in favor and 1 abstention. Item number 8, authorizing the chief financial officer to sign a spending account client renewal confirmation form with the Tryon Group for an employee health reimbursement account.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 9, tax refund for homestead benefits.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 10, appointing Judge Vincent J. Morrison to serve as a temporary municipal judge on an as-needed basis.
Move the resolution? Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 11, tax refund for Block 9998, Lot 1.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 12, refund EMS ambulance billing overpayment to Carpenters Health and Welfare.
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 13, public hearing. Public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 12, 2019, authorizing the transfer of township-owned land to the Habitat for Humanity in this public hearing.
Okay, before I open it up to the public, there were several, first I want to let the public know that we have the executive director of Habitat for Humanity, Sarah Matthews, is here to answer any questions you may have. But there was also a number of questions, including street width, public safety, and several others that were reflected in the minutes from the last meeting. And I know, Paul, I think you have compiled some answers and you went out and surveyed the area. So
Yes.
let's go through that before I open to the public.
Sure.
And then, we may call on Sarah based on some questions they may have personally about, the building or something like that, so.
Okay, I actually went out to inspect the road. I was with Superintendent Craig Reeves from Public Works, so we went out there together. That way, kind of, both of us could evaluate and discuss the road together. When we measured it, it was 30 feet wide road, which is typical for that neighborhood and several neighborhoods within the township. It's also well more than the minimum standard that's established by the state in our township ordinance. Most of the roads in that neighborhood, are within a foot or two of that width. There is the newer section of C Sounds that's all the way to the south. That is, I'll say, of the wider 38-foot wide generation of roads that were built kind of in the late 80s into the 90s. But as far as the generation of roads that are in there, they're actually the same size as all the roads in that neighborhood. Most of the newer roads today are 24 to 28 feet in width under the new state standard. So it well exceeds those standards.
Paul, I got to respectfully disagree. I was out on that road myself. I happened to be there. I had bumped into one of the residents out there and was sitting on the side of the road having a conversation. I was in my vehicle. At the time, another vehicle had tried to pass, and I was parked opposite of another legally parked vehicle, and that car could barely make it through. It's, I think it's really tight, and I think if we're going to do something and we're going to add a home on the opposite side of the street from where those houses are, where those people have their mailboxes, I think we have to make it at least as wide as the widest street in that section.
It is. All the streets that intersect with that road are that size. Also, when I was out there and Craig was out there, there was a school bus parked on the street, a car parked directly across from it, and between the two vehicles was 14 feet. More than enough for a vehicle or emergency vehicle, public works vehicle to pass. So, the normal travel lane on a state highway is 11 to 12 feet. So it's more than wide enough to have public service vehicles, emergency vehicles to get down the road. It's similar in size, and it more than exceeds the state and the township's minimum standards.
With what I witnessed, I don't know if you measured it at a different spot. Maybe I was sitting in a spot where it was a little bit
I measured it right in
narrower.
the spot where the proposed houses were to go.
No, that's about what I
And
was.
that's the same width,
Is that
general width down
Paul, is
that
that the
entire section.
cartway, or is that the
Cartway.
overall width?
That's the cartway.
Is there going to be, is there a shoulder there so people can get off the road? I think that's where the problem is.
Yeah, well, on that side of the road, there is a shoulder because there's a grass shoulder because there's no curb on that northerly side. So you actually would have, in an emergency standpoint, you could actually pull off into the grass and create more pavement or more width.
So you're telling me the actual asphalt right now is 30 feet?
Yes.
Asphalt, edge to edge?
Yes, which more than exceeds the state and the township standards. Like I said, most of our roads,
Without an apron?
excuse me?
Without an apron on the side? I think, I think that's where the
I don't know what
problem
you mean
comes
by
in.
apron, but meets those standards.
Paul, the residential site improvement standards, what's the standard width on a residential street?
Depending on the classification of the road, but it's actually, for this classification of road, it'd be 20 feet wide. If you go down Perry Road to Jonathan Landing, that was the first road in the township that was constructed under residential site improvement standards. It's 20 feet wide.
So you know what I asked Paul? The state, a number of years ago, came in and said, I hope he knows this from his work as a zoning officer. The state came in a number of years ago and said, municipalities, we're going to require you to have the same standards for subdivisions and new roads as throughout the state. So developers who develop in one town don't have to all of a sudden recalibrate and do something new in another town. They also wanted to encourage less permeable surface. So they did all these engineering studies and they came up with a standard. And I don't know if you noticed it, but if you go to, let's say, Cindy Lane, it's a wide street. Rich's Street, big, wide street. You're not allowed to build them anymore. You have to build narrower streets. That's why I was asking Paul what the width was.
And if you look at Farm and Crop Road, just up the street from here at Town Hall, if you look at West Ventnor Road and Beasley's Point, all roads built during, Jonathan Landing was the first one, much narrower. That was the first one under the standards. We ask developers sometimes to exceed that standard, and sometimes we get them to build between 24 and 28 feet in width.
Right. But I think one of the issues comes in is with the 30-foot width, even though it's, what the law requires would be less than that. If you have parking on both sides, you're down to 14 feet, which you're not going to be able to get two cars through there at one time.
And that's typical for a lot of streets. And all of Oak Forest is built that way. A lot of the streets in Marmora and the Ocean City Park, Allendale and Worcester, those streets. If you look at the streets off of Church Road, on the north side of Church Road between Stagecoach and the railroad tracks, they're all narrower streets. All the streets that were built in the township, from I'll say the 50s to the real early 80s, they're all of that size to service those smaller lots that were built during those generations. It wasn't until the late 90s when they started with the newer standards of the 38-foot wide roads. Like when you see Luke Court and Summers Avenue, those streets of the modern where it's 38 feet, you have an expansive pavement, that's the standard that was built at that point. But the standards are now reducing back to essentially what the standards were back in the 70s and early 80s.
If a developer were to go to the planning board now with a piece of property that was approved for residential construction, what would the requirement be for the width of the street?
20 feet. No curb, no sidewalk.
And no apron on the edge for parking, just that your pavement is 20, which is 2 drive aisles, so there's no requirement for additional width.
No. Grass shoulder.
So, okay.
So, and we cannot force the developer to do that.
No, I know, I'm just
That's what I was
trying
trying to say about the state law. The state law says on new roads, we couldn't make it bigger. You can't tell a developer you have to make it bigger.
Okay.
Well, I'm not necessarily stating that we should require the developer to do it, but if we have some opportunity within our paving program to get that street up to
We just paved the street fairly recently, so that street's not going to be up for paving for probably another 20, 25 years.
I don't know what the neighborhood would feel about this, but the other option, if that becomes a problem, is no parking on one side of the street, so that the width is never an issue.
well, that might make sense. I don't know how the neighbors would feel about it either, but, based on,
We've done that in other narrow streets where it's been congested and there's been problems. Frankly, we've done it in some of the Stratford areas.
In the newer streets, that's typically at the planning board level, that's what they do, is they'll choose a side sometimes during the planning board discussion, and especially if we're at a 24-foot wide street, to not have parking. Jonathan Landing, there's no parking signs on the street, but that's only 20 feet wide.
One of my concerns with it, and I'm all for the Habitat for Humanity, I think it's a great program, but we have to look at the safety issues. At the 30-foot, if we don't make it no parking on one side, and we're going to be backing up the one-armed bandits down that, it's a dead-end street, there's no turnarounds.
There's only, the last, they're not going to be backing up in this area where these 2 new homes would be going. It's only down at the end of the street where there is a small cul-de-sac, but not enough, it services 2 homes. They have to back down to service 2 homes, and not in the area where we're talking about. There is no need for Public Works to back down that area. Discussed that with Craig, and I think he concurs.
Right, that was one of my concerns.
And you've also verified with EMS and some public safety?
Public safety, they discussed it at the, my understanding is they discussed it at the Township Chiefs meeting, where all the fire chiefs, the EMS chief were there, and they had no concerns regarding, the addition of 2 homes on that section of street, that there's going to be no decrease in emergency service ability on the street compared to what it is today. Adding, today they park on both sides today. Like I said, when I was there was a school bus and a car parked directly across the street from each other, and not in the area where these 2 homes are going to be built. That's how it is today. And there's no limit of Public Works or EMS capabilities down that road, and it's being done that way today. So adding the 2 new homes is not going to change the function of that roadway.
Okay. Any other questions for Paul?
Yeah, I actually ran into Ed down there when I was down there. I looked around and I had a problem coming out on the East Ocean Avenue. I came out to Route 9. The site triangle there was majorly overgrown by the Comcast.
That's not on this street, that's on the street.
But that was an observation, in the site triangle. I think it's something we need to address, so. But Ed and I were talking, and one of the concerns was clearing the 2 lots all the way through to East Ocean Avenue.
And if you saw, I did send you a plot plan of kind of their typical lot layout, and they don't want to clear all the way through because it costs extra money to clear all the way through and to restabilize that. So their intent is really, when you look at that plot plan that I sent you, they're clearing maybe half. Maybe
But the homeowner, once they move in there, they could conceivably clear it.
conceivably, yeah.
So in other words, what we're saying is the facing of the lots. Is there another option with facing lots?
Obviously, you could face those same 2 lots facing, front them on Ocean, and then their backyards would be towards Pacific, which I felt that would be a worse condition to be in the backyard as opposed to the front yard. The other option would be is you could face the 2 lots instead, to be essentially one to be the side yard. They could both face, I think it's what, Seaside on the corner, and they could both front out onto the side street. But at that point then, at the corner, you'd have 2 houses. You would be clearing the 2 houses front to back because of...
But the other alternative is we could put them both fronting Pacific. Instead of having the lots go all the way through to East Ocean, we can have them go halfway and have 8 of those little lots. I think takes...
we could do that.
We could do 8 little lots each way and have both houses front Pacific and leave a 100-foot buffer between these homes and East Ocean Avenue.
It would stretch, you'd stretch it to 2 houses instead of being up in I'll say in the half of the block.
You
stretch
take it
down the whole length
yes.
of the block. Yes.
But you could leave a wood corridor in the back, and that way...
You could do that.
The
animals, lose the whole wooded area.
The animals and everything would still have a path to the front.
Yes. But I think in doing, if the committee decided to do that, I would believe that you'd probably have to rescind this ordinance.
Yeah, it's too much of a substantial change.
Right.
It's actually different lots.
Different lots.
Different properties.
Yes.
It would still accomplish the intent of the affordable housing plan. It might satisfy some of the
But you wouldn't stand on Pacific and be able to see all the way through to East Ocean Avenue.
The only thing I would have to check, it might delve into, I'd have to look at the depths. Then they might not have the depth for the rear yard setback. I'd have to look at because they're undersized, they are allowed provisions for reduced setbacks. So the rear yard setback would be the only difference. It might work because they can just orient the house the other way and have the long part of the house along the road. So it might still work, but I have to check the numbers. But that would be the only thing that might hamper that proposal. But it should be able to work.
All right. So it may well be that we'll come up with that other option, but I know we have called for a public hearing, and there are folks that are here to address concerns or whatever. So we'll have this, and then we'll still have to have another public.
You'd have to introduce a new ordinance with the new lots.
If we did
And
it,
any other conditions you wanted to put on it.
If that's what we decide, right? So, I mean, we still have to have the public hearing because it may
You
well
should
be
have
we'll
a
stick
public
with the
hearing.
existing
People here
ordinance.
probably want to be heard, so you might want to open to the public, find out if there's any other comments that you want to, maybe incorporate into a new ordinance if you're leaning that way. And then you would vote to not to adopt this ordinance and direct us to redraft another one.
I mean, and I think a lot of the other comments were more specified towards, an operational standpoint that the executive director for Habitat would be able to answer some of those other questions regarding maintenance and, the selection and criteria for property owners. Do the property owners pay a mortgage? Do the property owners pay taxes? And those kind of questions would probably be, they could be answered. If you want to get it from the executive directors, she'd be able to answer those questions more directly. I mean, I can tell you what they are, but I think it'd be more appropriate to hear from her.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone that would like to address the Township Committee on this particular ordinance, would ask that you go up to the podium, state your name, your address, and your reason for addressing the Township Committee.
Joe Fenton, 102 Pacific Avenue. I'm directly across the street from the proposed parcel of land. I know I asked a lot of questions last time about feasibility studies, tax analysis. How and what is the process the township uses to pick the individual properties or parcels of land they're going to use?
Well, as I explained last time, a subcommittee was developed by the planning board of residents from the township and members of the planning board, and we went through that process of looking at all the different mechanisms of how to satisfy the fair share plan, as well as, when we looked at picking sites for the habitat was, we had to look at township-owned property, upland property. You had to look at, didn't want to put it all in one stretch of one neighborhood. So we knew we had, we looked at 3 groupings. The one ended up falling off the list because of we actually put one out in Steelantown, but because of some farmlands issues and septic issues, we couldn't put it there. So we ended up with the 2 properties that were still on the list, one being off of Redwood and one being here.
How many parcels of land are there that could actually support this besides those other 2? Obviously it sounds like you investigated 3. 1 wasn't viable, so it's down to 2. Were there other parcels of land throughout the township that could be used?
Not as readily accessible to public road that was improved and not wetlands, not in the floodplain, or not restricted by other fashions. I'm sure there were others, but this is one of the...
I have records for the District of Upper that say there's 1,093 parcels of land. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that they're all buildable or that they all work in this process, but I find it almost like, I know their due diligence were done on 3 sections of the township. 3 out of quite a bit of land that's feasible. It almost seems like, okay, we looked at this, and then we threw darts, and the dart landed here, and this is what we're picking. One other question, the bus on the side of the road, is it on the street or is it on the grass shoulder when you measured it?
Looked like it was in the street to me.
The bus is never in the street. During the day, it is parked on the curb facing Route 9, but every other time that bus is on that side of the street, the wooded side of the street, it's in the grass shoulder.
Didn't notice it being in the grass when I observed it. I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm just saying the day that we were there, it looked like the bus was on the park on the paved street. I'm saying it doesn't, but I'm
You
just saying...
measured from
Regardless,
side to side? You didn't measure you were just looking what the bus area was with another car across?
we were actually leaving the street.
But the 30-foot is
Paved,
side to side,
yes,
and that's consistent on that street?
yes, in that neighborhood, except for that one section of C-Sound that is, 3 blocks to the south of here.
I didn't see a bus when I was there.
It was out,
Yeah, it was bus time.
delivering the kids. Also, last time there was some discussion as to whether there's going to be need for sidewalks.
There is not.
There's no need. That's different
Under the
from what we discussed last time.
Under the residential site improvement standards, sidewalks and curbing is not required unless you're within 2 miles of a school. That property is not within 2 miles of a school, so therefore not required to have curbs and sidewalks. Also, our ordinance only requires curbs or sidewalks in the RRRC, which is a residential resort commercial zone, and the town center zone, not in the residential zone, which when you look at all of the modern subdivisions that have been built, they don't have sidewalks. Summers Avenue, Luke Court.
Isn't there a school at the end of that street, a daycare school?
It's not classified as a school under the residential site.
I would venture to guess that if someone was trafficking drugs within 1,000 feet of that building, they would be charged within 1,000 feet of the school.
Under the residential site improvement standards, it does not classify as a school.
The parcels of land, lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 37, 38, 39, which is the first parcel of land. Each one's 25 by 100.
Yes.
So in essence, the land is going to be, from a standpoint, side to side, 200 feet long, which is
Correct.
larger than most of the lots in that area, correct?
Yes. About twice the size.
Right.
You understand what Mr. Corson was suggesting, right?
I do, but I actually would prefer if they did face Ocean Avenue.
You'd rather than face Ocean?
If the township is going to rewrite the ordinance and they're not going, I mean, is there any way to keep that 120 feet?
No, what he was suggesting was to keep 100 feet deep, if I understand him correctly, on
Pacific, but they can be on East Ocean.
Yeah, but that's a narrower street, so if you're talking about the width of the street being of a concern, East Ocean's actually narrower than this street.
But there's no houses on the other side.
There's one.
There's one.
But that,
other words, you
that
could
is,
rather-
but that is deeper, that's not in front of where these two houses will be built.
Well, it'd have to, because you'd have to reconfigure the lots so that it would actually go further down East Ocean.
And I don't know if I have enough improved width to get all the way, because East Ocean's not paved the full block.
Do we own on the other side of East Ocean?
No, there's
Yeah.
developed on,
Well, according to this map, we own both sides of East
According to the
Ocean.
map I have. I'm on a tax record right now.
Right there, there's the houses back there, we own both sides. Put one on each side of East.
beside, oh, you're talking about, I thought you meant on the whole part of, yeah, there's, beside that house, we own everything but that house. on
We can
East-
put one on each side of East Ocean, both on improved street.
So two guys.
And that would give you a 100-foot buffer between, I think that's a doable solution.
That would maintain the woods right across the street from your house.
Correct. And from Mr. Piper's house.
Yes. That's a doable solution. This one and this one.
I mean, in no way am I against inviting new neighbors into the township. I'm just trying to see if we can limit.
You don't want to change your view.
Correct.
I mean, I will.
Limit the change of view and the change of lifestyle.
There's less of an impact doing it this way,
Well,
Correct.
except
on the
that
entire neighborhood.
Except that several of the homes on the other side are on larger lots and are larger homes. That's the only difference.
Well, it's,
As you move
These are
towards
larger
Route 9,
lots too.
no, as you move towards Route 9, the next two or three homes are on 1 acre lots and.
Yeah, but this is in keeping with it, yeah, it's,
I'm just,
I think that's doable. I like that.
but yeah, there's no physical impediment as far as there's ownership and there's street frontage to do it.
I mean, if we move them over there, I'm going to tell you, it doesn't mean something's not going to eventually happen across the street from your house.
Yeah.
Not there's,
No, I
I don't have
understand
the
that,
crystal ball.
but it's also been discussed here that the township has decided that they're not going to put large amounts of these in one concentrated area. So, I mean, I understand there's no guarantee. I mean, there's no guarantee
Yeah.
that I'm not gonna walk out here and get hit by a bus either. I mean, you know, I get that, but I'm just looking for a solution, because I do believe that street is too tight, and if you're gonna have two houses right there, I mean, no parking on one side, so everybody's gonna park on the one side where the curb is on Pacific Avenue?
well, this would be two nice corner lots, and they're separated, and it gives you a buffer, gives everybody a buffer around it, so it's,
You know, I'm just saying, if it goes through the way it is, and you have just parking on one side of the street to mitigate some of the problems, you're gonna have 30 cars lined up there, and then you're gonna have the trash coming down to try to pick up the trash.
I feel pretty certain it's not gonna go through the way it's proposed.
Would anyone else like to address the Township Committee? Yes?
My name's Sean Piper. I live across from the parcels that are up for the ordinance. The last meeting, I was concerned about the wildlife, and I was told that no survey was necessary. Well, I called the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, and that's not true. They have to have an LOI. Do you know what an LOI is?
I do. They don't need an LOI.
DEP told me that you had to, because our land, that land, falls within a vernal habitat where there are turtles and salamanders, and I have the printout. In fact, John Haverty, his office gave me all this literature and said that there must be a survey, a wetland survey done for vernal habitats. He said, at the most, the ordinance should not go through. At the least, you have to do a survey by DEP. And I called them, and they said the property cannot be transferred until that survey is done. And I have the papers here. And I talked with John Haverty, and he's the director of Fish and Game Commission.
Well, the Fish and Game Commission is not the one that regulates that, so
This is coming from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
I understand.
And I'm supposed to
Regulate that.
report to them. Okay. Well, it is on the map. May I give it to you, Mayor?
Sure.
Okay. It is all there. They directed me through it. I don't know how to read this stuff. This is the property, this is the area of the habitat. And right here, all this is the proposed area. In fact, that's it. Right here's my house, there's Joe's, and right here's the parcel land they want to develop. Now, if they do it the way the gentleman over here said, if they do these two houses over there, then it falls out of that land, that habitat. I just wanted that, and if it isn't done, the DEP said that there might be some backlash. All it is a survey. They come in and just check it, and if it passes, it passes.
Right.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you.
Can I see that stuff?
Anyone else like to address the Township Committee? Sure.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the committee and the members in the public who are here as well. I'm Sarah Matthews. I'm Executive Director at Habitat for Humanity, and I just want to clarify some of the qualifications that a potential homeowner has to go through in order to become a homeowner. First and foremost, Habitat is not a subsidized housing program. We are an affordable housing program, and the individuals and families who are selected to become homeowners are actually receiving a mortgage, and they are responsible for their taxes and property and the like as the rest of us are. Partner homeowners actually work side by side with building the home. They have to put in 300 hours of sweat equity. That gives them an opportunity to become invested in their home and to look at it as a source of pride for themselves. And then they also understand what homeownership means and the process that goes into building that and eventually taking care of that. I have Bud Springer with me, who's our construction supervisor, and he meets with all the homeowners after they receive their keys. He goes over the care that you have to give a home, keeping the grounds and your property maintained as a member of the community. We don't have signs on the property. No one would really know that they were a Habitat homeowner. We give them the keys, and this is their home to take care of. And when we talk about affordable housing, a family of 4 in Cape May County can earn up to $58,383, and those figures are from a couple of years ago. I'm new to Habitat. I've been in nonprofit for 24 years. Also did some property issues with building and having group homes. So I'm understanding of the sensitivities of having a diverse neighborhood and never knowing what kind of neighbor you might end up with, so to speak. But I can assure you that our selection process is extremely rigorous, and in our past, we've actually had less than 5% of applicants have been approved. They're carefully vetted, and we want them to be good neighbors in the community. There was actually one really interesting point I wanted to share with you. This would be Habitat's 19th home in I would say the one that we're building right now would be our 19th home. So we have done this several times. And one other thing.
19th home where? Country?
In the county?
In the county.
I'm sorry, was there a question?
19th home where?
In Cape May County.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is in Cape May County.
Yes, we operate strictly within Cape May County. There's another affiliate in Atlantic and Cumberland, and they're all, pretty much bound by their county. I just want to remind people that these are local year-round working families who might not be able to afford a mortgage on their own, and especially in a town that has a lot of affluence, and I don't mean Upper Township, I mean this area in general. So I will say that probably about 15, possibly 20 years ago, if I want to date myself, I spoke on behalf of the Cape May County Women's Commission to address the need for affordable housing at that time, because with a tourism economy, you need people who can wait on tables, who can pump gas, who can work in our convenience stores, in our stores, and at the time, our population was declining and our school enrollment was declining, so that meant that we were losing funding for our schools. So providing an opportunity for affordable housing is providing an opportunity for, the community in general. I want to say that we select families based on 3 criteria: the ability to repay a Habitat mortgage, their need, and their willingness to partner with Habitat. They have to have an outstanding employment history, a low debt-to-income ratio, and a strong rental record, giving responsible renters the opportunity to become homeowners. And we open up that selection process. It's a public announcement, so there's opportunity for people that you might know, and possibly, any rental people that might live in your neighborhood already. Just so everybody can see a little bit, this is a typical Habitat for Humanity in Cape May County home. They come in several sizes, 2, 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes. And if anyone's looked at the newspaper today and probably tomorrow, we're actually moving a home from Avalon. Someone's donated a home from Avalon, a 2-bedroom home. So even that has been a possibility for us. Is there any questions for me specifically? Help to explain what we do and
No,
who we are?
I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I know that, we have supported this effort and we will, do what we can to make sure that we make everyone comfortable. So we appreciate the work that you're doing throughout the county and specifically in Upper Township. So.
Well, we appreciate the collaboration that we've had with you, and Paul's been exceptionally helpful with us. As you know, we have 2 other lots that we're currently actually
Isn't the one house from Avalon coming here?
Yep. So it's making its way on Thursday. And you guys may or may not have heard about it because you had to give authority for us to move it. So the mover has to get all the permitting. So, but we're very appreciative of any land that that's provided to us, because in order to be able to do what we do, that's a significant part of that. And when we're able to help one family, it's not just, at that moment, it's across a lifetime, because there's usually children involved, and it gives stability to them for a long time to come. So I appreciate that. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the Township Committee for this specific ordinance? It doesn't appear that there's any other comments specific to this ordinance, so I'll close the public portion. Normally I would come back and entertain a motion for adoption, but I think that we've reached a point where we may table this based on recommendations by Mr. Committeeman Corson that seems to have some merit. Right.
I would suggest that if you're not going to go forward with this, that you vote not to adopt it, to rescind it, and ask that we review and present possible different lots to be donated based on the discussion tonight.
I will make a motion, we rescind ordinance number 12 of 2019.
Second.
But I just want to be clear to the public that this doesn't mean that we're not going to move forward with donating, 2 lots. We're committed to doing that. And so we'll find an alternative that makes it more palatable, not only, for the residents in the area, but also in the community as a whole. So by rescinding it, I can't emphasize enough, that doesn't mean that we're walking away from this. We still think it's a very valid project.
I'm going to make a motion after we vote on this.
Okay. So there's a first and a second to rescind. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
And then I'd like to make a motion, we authorize our legal counsel and our engineer to pursue an ordinance for donating the land on the corners of East Ocean Avenue and Seaview Avenue, one on Block 590 and the other on Block 585. I guess one's Lot 2, and I can't make out, it's 1 through 8 on the other side.
Second.
Actually, if you could amend that because the lots in Block 590 have already been consolidated, it would just be Block 590, Lot 2.
Yes.
And then what blocks in 585?
585 would be 1 through 8, I believe.
1 through 8? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear, so
And I believe they're outside the salamander zone.
And it still provides a wooded buffer to the neighborhood and accomplishes our goal. And they both would front approved streets.
All right, so we have a first and a second to move forward. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes. So since we have members of the public here that were concerned about the original ordinance, time frame, I think, would be important to give them some idea. So is it possible to have the ordinance in 2 weeks, or are we talking 4 weeks from
I
now?
don't know what legwork Paul has to do to make sure that they're buildable lots.
Right, so let's just say,
We may get it in, but
rather than do that, why don't we stay firm on 4?
but I can't do it straddling over the end.
No, but, okay, so let's make it easier and more clear if we can. Why don't we try and introduce it for the first meeting in November? That's more than 2 weeks, okay?
You're going to be able to get your information.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then it would be 30 days after that, so what, I know December's a little different, 9th and 16th, I think they were, December, I kind of was looking at that from account. Anyway, probably, if it doesn't take place in the last week of, the last meeting in December, which I believe is December 16th, it will be, the first meeting, not the reorganization meeting, but the first.
I can't, that's what I can't do. You have to reintroduce it in the new year.
Right. Oh, we do, okay.
It has to be done by the end.
Oh, so then let's try and shoot for that.
The
Can we?
16th.
No, yes. I know there's not really a rush, but,
Well, I won't be here on the meeting on the 16th, so if you, I can be ready for the next meeting. So, I mean, if you want to do it to adopt it on the 9th, then we can have it.
This next meeting.
has to be 30 days, right? So that would mean
We could be ready by the first meeting in December.
December 9th.
Right, is that 30?
All right, we're going to shoot for a public hearing on December 9th, but just, if the information will be on the website and will be available at the clerk's office in case for whatever reason the research isn't able to be completed that's required for us before we move forward with
I mean, even if it goes to the 16th, I think most of our concerns have been addressed here.
Yes.
So,
well, I prefer that we have Paul here if we possibly could, so.
okay.
All right,
Move on.
yes, please.
Item number 14, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 15, 2019, an ordinance amending revised general ordinance, Chapter 7 of the Code of Upper Township to provide for mandatory penalties for traffic violations.
Okay, so this is an ordinance that will assist the state police in issuing tickets. Specifically, there was a request because of the Ocean Drive area.
What it does is they were issuing tickets, but
Commonwealth.
numerous tickets were requiring court appearances. This will
Right.
allow our municipal court to issue summonses that they can just send in the violation and that people won't have to appear.
This will also help us in Tuckahoe Road with the cross facilities as far as our no parking area there with them writing tickets there also.
Okay, so would anyone, I don't think there's any other comments from the committee, is there? So if, we're going to now open it up for a public hearing. If anyone would like to address the Township Committee on this particular ordinance, please come to the podium and state your name and your address and your reason to address the Township Committee specific to this ordinance. Okay, let the record reflect that there is no public comment, so I'll close the public hearing portion and entertain a motion for adoption.
Motion to adopt ordinance 15-2019.
Second.
All right, Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 15, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 17, 2019, an ordinance revising job classifications and titles and amending Chapter 5 entitled Personnel of the Code of Upper Township. And if we could schedule the public hearing for this to be November 12th, that would work out.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance number 17-2019.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 16, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 18, 2019, and ordinance amending ordinance number 21, 2018, known as the salary ordinance for the calendar year 2019. And again, public hearing on November 12th would work.
Move we introduce ordinance number 18 of 2019.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Plummer?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Item number 17, under new business, we have the assessment report for the fire districts.
Over the course of last week and the prior week, Mr. Corson, Mrs. Ludi, and myself met with the chiefs and the commissioners of all 4 of our fire districts. We did this and furnished them with a questionnaire that is recommended through the state best practices. All of the fire districts answered the questionnaire satisfactorily. The fire districts have published their financial reports as required, and the fire districts' audits all came up clean with no points in the audits.
Great. So we can take this in that FYI, or do we need to make a motion to accept the report?
Best practices, we just need to discuss
It needs to be, the report
just has to be
that
discussed.
I provided, it needs to be discussed, and then the report that I provided be in the minutes.
The minutes are going to be sufficient.
Good.
Okay. Item number 18, NJDEP Green Acres request to purchase township-owned property, block 479, lot 72.
Paul, talk to us about this land.
This land, it had an interesting trail in that, I guess in the process of, we had foreclosed, we had received a tax lien, and in the process of us foreclosing on it, the property owner had also started kind of negotiations with the DEP to sell the land to them. But I think we foreclosed on it before they realized that they could transfer the title, and when the DEP realized that they couldn't buy it because we had already foreclosed on it, they've reached out to us to see if we want to sell it to them. They're not asking for a donation, they're asking for a land sale. So, I talked to Megan, they've been purchasing property in the township, that has wetlands, anywhere between like $1,100 to $1,500 an acre. So that's, obviously they would get an appraisal.
Is this wetland?
It's all wetlands. It's on the, I'll say, the northeast side of the railroad, right away that goes to BL England. It's all in the coastal marsh. It's all wet. Well,
How many acres?
An application has to be filled out. If you want to move forward, I would suggest you ask Mr. Dietrich to fill out the application.
Right on the railroad
it's like
bed?
20, 30 acres. I think
Does it go right up against the railroad bed?
I believe so, yes.
Will it have any impact, like, for instance, we've been talking about bike paths and all that
No,
kind
it
of
has
stuff?
no impact. This is totally in the wetlands area, so it's
No public need.
no public need whatsoever. And it's totally, on that side, it's totally surrounded by the DEP property. They just want to maintain it and,
The fact that they want to buy it from us instead of asking us to give it to them is a win.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I have another thought on this, Paul. In the discussions of a complete interchange for exit 20, some of the negative factors on putting an interchange there were potential wetlands. Now, perhaps we could use this parcel of land by way of mitigation.
It won't, for wetlands mitigation on a project like that, you actually have to take upland area
And make it.
and make it
into-
wetlands.
Okay.
Yeah, further deed restricting wetland area as wetlands.
Yeah, right, you're trading like items.
Yes, they're looking for you to create new wetlands.
Gotcha.
But could it be used for a mitigation of an open space or something?
No, there's no public.
There's no use for it.
There's no use for the township except maintaining it in their inventory. The only reason why we received it was the property owner stopped paying taxes, and we foreclosed on it just to clean it up on the tax rolls.
I'd like to make a motion, we pursue this for sale to the Green Acres or whomever wants to purchase it.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 19, Ducks Unlimited State Committee requests to hold a raffle, number 522, at the Tuckahoe Firehouse on November 9th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yep.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 20, under unfinished business, NJDOT roadway improvement projects regarding Route 9 Tuckahoe Road to Roosevelt Boulevard.
If you recall, about a month ago or a month and a half ago, we discussed...
Before we start this discussion, my understanding is for at least the Route 9 Memorial area, Mr. Coggins has a conflict, so he's not going to be participating in this discussion, correct?
Correct.
The DOT had sent us some alternative proposals to make improvements to two sections of Route 9. The first section was between Roosevelt Boulevard and Tuckahoe Road, and then the other section was, I'll say, from Harbor Road north to the terminus where the Beasley's Point Bridge used to be. They provided two alternatives for the Route 9 section in Marmora. That essentially involved, one alternative was widening the road from, I'll say, the westerly side, the Wawa side of Route 9, and kind of building a full shoulder travel lane, center turn lane, travel lane, shoulder, and then curbs and sidewalk, which, you know, as everybody knows, there's currently no sidewalks in that area on the easterly side. There's no shoulders in that section of road. So in providing those additional safety and areas, you know, that pushes the right-of-way line up very close to some of the buildings that are along, you know, especially Marmora Hardware, the apartment, and...
Someone must have their phone close to the microphone.
John, just let you the mic. That's it. So in doing that, you know, there would be some right-of-way taking, but the DOT looks at it as improving safety improvements. There'll be improved turning radius. There'll also be improving the alignment of Roosevelt Boulevard as you cross Route 9. As you know, it kind of kinks in there, and it's not a nice smooth alignment, so they're going to kind of straighten that out. And they're hoping to slightly improve. It's not going to improve the overall levels of service, but they will hopefully reduce some of the delay that you would see as some of the traffic timing signals. I do have boards that the DOT sent over. If you have questions, I can put them up if you wanted to look at them. I did provide those. You know, they are in your drive, and I think I provided copies at the last meeting. We did send this to the planning board. The planning board felt that within the town center guidelines that alternative was the preferred alternative at number 4. Alternative 7 had a nuance in that from Roosevelt Boulevard and making the left-hand turn to head to Route 9 South, they were going to carry 2 turn lanes instead of the currently signal line as 1 turn lane. They were going to carry 2 turn lanes to head Route 9 South, and then have 2 lanes almost all the way down through the Wawa driveway entrance and going through Pine Road.
You don't think that's going to be crazy when people trying to cut over and that doesn't make any sense. There's a single lane there now.
That was the exact comment that I kind of made to the DOT when they showed it. That's the comment I made to the planning board, and the planning board concurred that alternative of trying to have 2 lanes merge into 1 as you cross.
Especially at a busy intersection where the Wawa is. I mean,
Now, is this being coordinated with the county? Because we've been talking about doing something with Roosevelt Boulevard.
The county is aware of this. This project is really just looking at roadway improvements. This project does not entail any streetscaping, you know, besides putting curbs and sidewalks, which is obviously a pedestrian amenity that is needed, especially on the east side of Route 9. You know, it's not looking at streetscaping or anything like that. Any of that streetscaping, you know, even from the county's perspective, would fall to the township's guidelines.
So when would they be thinking about doing this project?
This project, if it carries on its current schedule, would look to have construction in 2024. So it still has a way to go, and some of that may move a little bit earlier, but a lot of that will depend on right-of-way and property acquisition as part of the process. So, I mean, my recommendation is that we would, in a resolution, support alternative 4 in that section.
Okay.
I did have a chance to talk to 2 of the property owners that would be affected in there. I talked to More Hardware and the property owner of where the jewelry store and the cleaners are. Talked to both those property owners, and the More Hardware is probably one of the more severely impacted properties. He understood it, and that's one of the properties where they currently have parking that backs out, or you have to back out into Route 9. Half that parking stall is actually in the right of way, so it's not really a conforming parking area. The other one for the jewelry store, I think it actually, there would be no negative impact to their property because it's really unaffected in where they want to take it.
To the apartments that are there, and Bill Brown's, because he also backs out.
Well, Bill Brown, for the employee standpoint, they park on the side, they park on Roberts Avenue. Because it has a shoulder there, parking would be available on Route 9, so you'd be able to pull up and park out on Route 9.
The poor apartments.
The apartments, that's going to be the real difficult, they park, they're parking out in the right of way now as it is. They do have 1 or 2 spots that they squeeze in the back, but they're really on top of the septic system, so not really a good alternative there. So, that's something that the DOT will have to work out with the property owners, with access, their access bureau, and work with them. That's one of the reasons why the project they know is going to take a little bit of time, because there are some right-of-way issues that they've got to work out with the property owners. But as far as, I think this will move us towards, when you look at the Memorial Town Center design guidelines, this really conforms with what the proposed, Memorial guidelines are as far as roadway widths and design.
And it's probably a safer alternative than what's there now.
Much safer than what's there. Anytime you have those properties where they're backing out on to Route 9 that has no shoulder, I know if I ever visited Memorial Hardware, I never would park in the front. I always try to pull over to the side because it's not good to back out on Route 9 there. The other section,
So we're going to pick alternative 4 for that, right?
they looked at the various alternatives. 2 of them had cul-de-sacs to provide turnaround. The others just had, flip sides of parallel parking or angled parking. Both our previous public hearing that we had and the one we had there, the comment was really to have a cul-de-sac, to have a proper turnaround, to not having to make a K-turn type of maneuver in the roadway. Though it does have less parking spaces, when you looked at what would be available for parking, and I apologize for the citizens turn around, this ends up being a big word, that there is additional right-of-way space for them to add some pull-in parking spaces or parallel parking spaces off of the shoulder along that section south of Parker Road. So they'll be able to pick up those same number of lost parking spaces there.
See, we want to do all this stuff for public access to beaches and the waterway, and we're going to not give them a spot to park. I mean, if we don't do something with the maximum amount of parking, we're nuts.
Well, you still provide the same amount of parking, but you also got to provide them a safe way to turn around. That's part of doing the.
So couldn't they put like a one-way only, like from where Harbor Road is, and they could do the parallel, whatever it is, the diagonal parking, and then when they pull out, they can just go one way. I mean,
Well, it's got to be two-way, because if you drive in, you got to drive out. And you got to be able to, if you drive in there and there's all the spaces are taken, you got to have a way to turn around and get back out. So the only safe way to do that is with a cul-de-sac.
But with a cul-de-sac, how many parking spots? I forget how many were, it was not many.
There was a loss of, I think when you looked at it, I think a loss of like 8 or 9 parking spaces, but my suggestion is, and the DOT seems willing to do that, is they can get those same parking spots back on the south side of
Well, I'd want to see them on the plan before I voted to do that.
Because I have to tell you,
Because we're still waiting for a Parkway Bridge or bike path to open.
I live down there, and I can tell you, in the summertime, when there's a lot of people, there's no park, I mean, they park all along the roadside now, off the road, on the grass, or anywhere they possibly can find a spot.
And that's why I made that suggestion, because they're already parking there now, so let's make it more formal, and instead of parking out on the gravel grass area, give them a spot to park legally.
Well, I'm kind of with Mr. Corson. I don't want to see us in any way reduce the amount of parking. I mean, that's the same argument we had with, and they ultimately went with a parking lot over in Strathmere for that same reason. I mean, there are cars everywhere down there in the summertime. And that's not, a bad reflection on the operation, of the businesses there. It's more that, people want to go to that area for the view and the aesthetics and everything that it has to offer.
Well, if we selected an alternative, you could include in your resolution to say, that you need additional parking to maximize what the parking is in the other alternative. That they must provide that. And that's part of your condition, and if they don't provide that
Didn't you have a drawing of this?
We got one right here. I got 126.
There's a handout that we had before we submitted it to the planning board. It has exhibits.
Yeah, I remember
What Paul
seeing it. I mean,
suggested, though, is not on the
I remember
handout.
seeing it, but there's nothing there.
The one with the cul-de-sac has 12 parking spots. The one without the cul-de-sac has 26. That's a loss of 14 parking spots. I don't think we need a cul-de-sac.
Your issue here is which alternative that they presented. Paul's telling you that the planning board has opted for a safer turnaround and 8 or so less parking spots.
I think Mr. Corson, he counted the numbers. I didn't have the number in front of me. It's 14.
14 less parking spots. One of their proposals has you parking diagonally and doing a K-turn to leave, if I understand it correctly.
I mean, like the alternative 4 with the northbound parking. I mean, you can safely get in and out of there. Most cars come today with reversing them. It's not enough.
If you're that last, they don't have enough room, if that last angle parking in, to make that full back out maneuver, right? And if you're driven back there, not pulled into a parking spot, the only way to get out is to back out the way you came in. If you're not in a parking stall, there's no way on that alternative field, they've left you no room to pull in somewhere to make a K-turn to come out. You don't have enough room. I mean, you could make a 10-point turn, but that's not a safe thing to do.
Well, leave the last parking spot as a no parking and a spot to turn around. I mean, to give up 14 parking spots for a cul-de-sac is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I mean, why are we going to increase all the activity and increase our beautiful waterfront there if we're not going to provide places for people to park and look at it? If we're not going to give them parking, we should not even apply for that county open space grant to approve this.
And the other issue is even if they were to use we put additional parking beyond Harbor Road, it's dark, and that's a curving road. Really not good for pedestrians in any way to walk from there unless they're willing to put a sidewalk in there.
Well, we'll be putting, as part of our county project, we'll be putting in sidewalks and lighting from Route 9 back to our parking lot.
I mean, I'm still with Mr. Corson. Taking away 14 spots will only mean they're going to be parking further up the northern part of, 9 there. They'll be parking from Harbor Road, back another 300 feet on the shoulder. I mean, they park there now.
There's sufficient room to put in the 14 lost parking spaces for the cul-de-sac south of Harbor Road, and your distance to that intersection is going to be the same.
Well, I want to see it on the plan before we approve a plan. Because I don't trust them. We got a bike path that's not open now because where are we going with this? I mean,
some of the, recent issues, the bike path in particular, the walkway over the bridge, it's like a bridge or walkway to nowhere that, why did they even put it in there if they're not going to use it? But, you know, the parking is an issue. That's why we were so adamant in Strathmere to make sure that there was ample parking, because people were used to parking there. And one of the, I guess, issues that has to be addressed is, I'm sure there's employees that park there, so that there's more parking in the parking lot for the people that are customers.
Well, there's employees, and then there's also, it's being utilized by the business that's there.
It's both, and I understand that, and to take away some of it.
I mean, not for cars.
It would be
it's
very,
being utilized
I mean,
for-
I think you create an additional safety issue on the other end heading north. Like, where are they gonna park? So, you know, I would prefer to see something that would show what, you know, where the parking is as well.
I'll correspond with the DOT, see if they can revise that alternative 6.
I mean, we're not talking any rush if you're saying it's not gonna be done till 2024 anyway, or is this one ahead of?
No, this would be part of the same project.
Right, so, you know, I mean, we have some time for them to rethink this a little bit and get back to us.
Okay, so alternative 6 would be potentially acceptable if they provided the same amount of parking.
Yeah, I mean, a cul-de-sac would be potentially acceptable as long as we don't lose 14 parking spots.
I like alternative 4. That's just me, because we got 26 parking spots. To give up 14 parking spots is, unless they can show me the parking spot somewhere else. And then is there any way to make the state actually do it once we approve it? We make any other developer put up a pond to finish a job.
That's true. All right, so you'll work with them and see what we can come up with, right?
We'll work with them to get a revised sketch for you.
Okay.
All right, I hereby move that all claims submitted for the payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of the meeting.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Farr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
There are a number of reports from municipal departments: animal control, clerk's office, construction, division of EMS, engineer, finance, municipal court, MUA, public works, tax collector affidavit of tax sale. All of these reports will be available upon request tomorrow at the clerk's office, but I'll make a motion to accept these reports.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So at this time, we've reached the public comment portion to address any issue that you have in the township, and now's the time to do that. So we would ask that if you have, you want to address the township committee, as I stated before, please come to the podium, state your name and your address, and your reason for addressing the township committee.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Linda Jones. I live at 21 Oak Street in Palermo. I want to talk about coyotes. We have a very bad problem there. As you know, there's a house around the corner on Rivendell that's due to be demolished. There's a den of 11 of them in there. There's also a bigger den where George's Farm Market used to be. We no longer have turkey buzzards in our neighborhood. We no longer have cats in our neighborhood. We no longer have squirrels in our neighborhood. I have called the township. I was given a number in Ocean County for the New Jersey State, Fish and Wildlife, and the phone rings and it hangs up on you. Is the township going to do anything? They are ungodly at night, listening to them howl.
And this is in the Oak Forest section?
No. I'm on Oak Street
Oh, I'm
between,
sorry.
off of Church Road.
Okay.
Actually, New Jersey Division of Fish and Game is who has to handle coyotes.
I figured because the government put them here years ago, unfortunately, but they howl
Our
ungodly.
animal control has no means or whatever to handle them. And as far as this, I don't believe they're living in Rivendell. I think we had somebody investigate that.
Oh, that's a disaster.
Well, it's getting demolished.
Very soon.
Down.
Good.
It's coming down. And then the township's going to have a lien on the property. It's probably going to be sold. But that being said, The New Jersey Division of Fish and Game, there's got to be a contact number somewhere.
Call my office tomorrow. I do have a number. I've been in contact with them regarding the coyotes.
And what office are you in?
Extension 257.
257? Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much.
And,
I mean, maybe we can make a contact to at least have them come down and survey the area and see, what's there.
I'd appreciate it.
They're probably not going to do too much, because,
I do know that they're all over, but
Yeah.
I saw them in my yard, I was a little freaked out.
so they actually got one of my dogs.
I feel bad for you, I'm sorry.
I got even the score.
It's only from Curtis.
Actually, it was 4-1.
So we'll forget about that one. Would anyone else like to address the Township Committee?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and committee. My name is Fred Banner. I live at 24 Oak Street in Marmora. In the years prior to and culminating in 2014, 2015, I joined a large number of folks here in these chambers to discuss how the township was going to pursue and meet the COA obligations through use of mobile home parks. And I learned a lot through that process. Some of our dialogues were maybe they were a bit aggressive, maybe they weren't clear, but our intention was to understand how to thoughtfully participate with the township as we work to seek meeting those obligations while balancing the development around largely rural or larger lots. And I'm very encouraged by the discussion that I heard just earlier this evening about the desire to maintain buffers. And with all due respect, Mayor, I can't quote you, but I left here comforted after one meeting when you said these folks need some relief. We have to give some folks some relief. And I left that meeting, along with many folks in that meeting, thinking that the relief that we had discussed, I'm looking at specifically the Shaw property, was a 75-foot buffer, retaining mature vegetation in that 75-foot buffer, then a fence on the park side of that buffer or the Tuckahoe Road side of that buffer. I attended with a large group of folks subsequent meetings where the developer was represented by his attorney, Steve Nemad, who's a very dear friend of mine. I've known him for a very long time. And there were requests for zoning changes right after those zoning ordinances went into place. And you stood firm, and I applauded you for that. I simply stood here and I asked, please hold your ground. They wanted to take the fence down. And you stood your ground. You said, please, let's stay with these variances, or let's stay with these ordinances. I believe you did offer him at the time to place a pond there. As you're well aware, they have cleared that lot, and we've accepted that that's going to be a part of our community. But I would like to report that the buffer that I've measured is in some places 50 feet, in some places as little as 36 feet. And in some places specifically, and this is going to sound selfish, but behind my home, it's only one tree row wide. So I would like to get some clarification on what the agreed upon zoning was for that property. Was it 75, or is that something that I manufactured and many of us did in that evening? If it's changed, I'd like to understand how, and I would, just so we can know as the development starts to happen, what's going to be happening in that property? Or is there still a fence? Is there still going to be improvements to the buffer that's only one tree level wide to that 50 feet with vegetation as the discussions had? And I would just like to leave here with some clarity so that we can understand that. Quite frankly, it was very unsettling to leave for work that day, and you know how quickly trees can be cleared. They don't grow that fast. And that encroachment just came. I am aware that a few of our neighbors made some phone calls. I am aware that we asked for that to be reviewed. I don't know if that's been the case, but I'm just looking for some education and explanation about, was it 75? Should it have been 75? Are we going to improve upon that? Is there still a fence? And what can the residents, there are 13 homes that border this particular piece of property. What can we expect as residents going forward? And thank you for hearing me.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call on the engineer to see what he knows, because I do remember the discussion. I don't remember the specifics, but it's been quite a while, and I don't want to misquote anything. So where are we at with this, Paul?
The approved buffer that I read on the plan is 50 feet along, I'll say, the Church Road side and the Oak Road street side.
What's the ordinance?
I don't recall. I
Okay.
don't have to look it up. I'm looking at the approved plan, so, and I don't recall if they did get a variance for that or
I
not.
understand.
But look at the approved plan. I know there is going to be a fence called for on the plan. So that, obviously they just cleared, they just started construction, so the fence won't be for some time.
So let's just address the one. I don't know if it's 75 feet or 50 feet, but let's just say it's 50 feet, and right now there's only one tree and 10 foot. Will they have to plant
I would have
vegetation?
to go, I've been on the site right when they started clearing, while they were clearing, and then after they were done clearing. And I walked the whole side and I measured it. I'd have to really go out there with a banner and check. I measured 50 feet in all the spots. Now, there were some areas that were previously already cleared that maybe had a little bit smaller of a buffer, but the areas, and then there was a section, I believe, all the way down at the northerly side that there was a further reduction of the buffer down by where the proposed septic field was going to be in that northwesterly or northeasterly corner in that area. But as far as behind all the homes, they have the required buffer. It was laid out by a licensed surveyor. Their flags are out there, and I inspected.
But you haven't been to the site to inspect it.
Yeah, I have.
Do you know what happened here?
I don't know where. I don't know where. I did not see anywhere where there's just one, where it's cleared to one tree width. Unless it's happened within the last week.
Just so you know, legally he has to comply with his site plan, whatever
Right.
was approved.
So here's what we can do for you. We can.
I'll be happy to meet with him on
Right,
site.
please. Paul will meet with you, and he'll bring the specifics that were ultimately passed by the planning board. And, I would think that, and I don't, without knowing what's in that plan, I would think that and I do remember that a fence was required, so it would have to be beyond that 50-foot buffer, right?
He is correct that there was supposed to be the buffer,
Right.
the property line, the buffer, and then the fence.
Right.
And that is shown on the plan, but obviously they haven't.
Right, so what we'll do is, you have his address, Barbara, you wrote it down.
I was just give me a call. Sure. And we'll set up a meeting. I'll meet you
Okay,
there.
I mean, obviously, if there's an issue, it'll have to be addressed, so we'll handle that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's that variation, 50 feet to 75. If I'm a guy who wants to make that a big number, that's 50%. If I have 36 to 50, that's 14, that's 33%. I have photos, I fly drones, so I have photos if you'd like to see the property. I have a picture can I approach the bench and show you just one picture of what this buffer?
But I still want Paul to come over and meet with you.
I think that he should. I apologize, I had this up and it faded back. This is the after shot, and this is the buffer as it exists today. There was 200 feet of woods in front of that was taken back, and that's the buffer as it exists from the railroad track looking into the park today. So while it affords us some trees.
Right, but this, I don't know how far the buffer goes out, and I know there was trees beyond that, but, that it was agreed upon, whatever the buffer is. So we need to have him come over
Yes.
and take a look at it, because it's a little hard to determine where it is with the picture, so.
But thank you. And then the other thing would be that in the area, to be clear, there was an area where it was a field. So that strip was not excavated. It's just remaining, but it's 4 feet wide. So my understanding when I left those meetings was that would be enhanced between the railroad bed and the fence to improve that buffer as a vegetative buffer.
And it may be. Not having the plans in front of me,
Yeah. But I'm just looking for some clarification, so I'll make that call and I'll meet you. Thank you
Okay,
very
great.
much for hearing this.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the township? Yes.
Hi, Julie Baumgartner, 22 Oak Street, and I just want to reiterate what Fred was saying, but more importantly, I want to go back to what was discussed when the Habitat for Humanity discussion took place, and I was very encouraged when you were talking about how important it was for the homeowners to have a buffer, and you encouraged the homeowners to work with Habitat for Humanity and with the committeemen. So I hope that you'll work with us on Oak Street so that we can have a buffer and have some privacy from, believe it or not, from Oak Street, we can see all of the traffic now on Tuckahoe Road, which we never could see before because we had such a buffer of trees and we had privacy. Now we don't have that. So if we can get some buffer back and a fence put up, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have one quick statement. I live across.
Can you come up to the, only because we're recording it?
I just have one thing to add to what Mr. Banner said. He lives across the street from me. And when I can stand in my living room and now see the traffic going Tuckahoe Road, there's only a 35-foot buffer, if that, from what I'm looking at.
Well, understand one thing. When there's a 50-foot buffer, there, I mean, if there's some sparsely trees in there, but they're still doing a 50-foot buffer. It may well be that the trees on the land that isn't a part of the buffer was what, was providing, the block that you couldn't see what's going on Tuckahoe Road. So, it's really hard for the committee, for myself and the committee to comment without knowing exactly what's there. And that's why it's important that we send Mr. Dietrich over there to take a look at what's going on, so they can figure that out, so.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, seems like we've exhausted those that would like to address the Township Committee. So I thank you all for coming this evening and being a part of the meeting. And so at this time, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and entertain a motion by Committeeman Coggins to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. The matters are litigation in regard to the National Prescription Opiate litigation, potential litigation for site plan violations, contract negotiations for Braverman and McAfee land donations, Block 16, Lots 20 and 23, Block 26, Lot 50, and Block 638, Lot 14. Contract negotiation for the assignment of tax sales certificate, Block 629, Lot 9. Contract negotiation for KD National Force Security. Contract negotiations for shared services agreement with the Cape May County Municipal Utilities Authority, and personnel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Have a pleasant evening. Have a great week. Drive safely home.